Hey guys, Roy here today. We're in Plant City and Dante's helping out as usual, wearing his pink sweatshirt, sporting a nice pink sweatshirt, Dante. It's a little chilly here today in Plant City. It's in the 50s and 60s, which is unusual here in Florida. But we're doing this roof, and I'm gonna go up on the roof right now and do a pre-look while we're filling up on water. Gutters aren't too bad. Hey Dante, you could start bagging those gutters. Do you have a knife?
Not on me, no.
Here. All right, so got some dark stains. Otherwise the roof looks to be in pretty good shape. And take a look over here. Got some streaking, that's typical. That is a algae that grows and it eats away at your shingles. So even not just for looks, but for the lifespan of your roof, it's a good idea to get that taken care of. So pretty simple roof, pretty straightforward. It's not super complex. So decent surface area though, decent sized house. So my soft wash system was sputtering and I thought it was the pump was going, but as we were unwinding the hose, we just discovered a hole in the hose. So unfortunately I have a replacement hose back home, so we wrapped some tape around it. Hopefully it's not just sucking too much air in the line. So we'll see if that works better. Obviously have to replace that hose when we get back, but hopefully we don't have to replace the pump. All right, so we're gonna get everything going. We're gonna start watering down and we'll be back with you in a bit. All right guys, that roof's not super dirty. It's pretty dirty, but I'm gonna adjust the mix here. It's not gonna be super strong. I'll do about 4%. Got the surfactant on there. Our system has the rinse or soft wash. Make sure that that's set to soft wash. Otherwise, it's just cleaning the pump. So, and not sending any chemical downstream. So those are our settings for today. So about 4%-ish. So we're starting to do some bags. It needs to be longer than that probably. Yeah. Doing some bags for the gutter runoff. So we can catch that, and then we'll start rinsing down. All right, guys, we're gonna pull the hose here. Dante's wetting in the back. Start back here, work our way forward. Breezy today, we're gonna be fighting the wind. This side's not too bad. Some little staining over there, but overall this side's not bad. Not gonna be the dramatic change like we normally see. Pump's still acting up, so I'm not sure if trying to put that tape over the hose helped at all. The hose could still be the issue, so we'll swap that out first before we swap out the pump. But luckily, I knew their time were coming, so I do have backups of both the pump and the hoses. So today is the day after Thanksgiving, so this is our only job for today. A lot of people are still out of town and stuff, so I still have family over. So a little bit slower day today, which is fine. We're still recovering from the Thanksgiving festivities with our friends yesterday. I'm gonna have to get back to my normal diet this week. All right, so like I said earlier, we're running, ooh, right in the face, that's good. Running about a 4% mix today. Nothing crazy. Probably don't even need that on this back portion, but I guess you can see some changes already there. So a little bit dirtier than what I was thinking initially. You can see on these shingle roofs, we treat them a little differently than we do the tile. We like to start at the top and let that run down, do some of the work for us so we're not wasting chemical. You know, let that run down the roof as much as possible. You see how it's streaming down. That way we don't need to waste any of our precious chemical. We've gotten some questions about where we get our supplies. So in our area here in Florida, I don't have the space to store like 50-gallon drums or anything like that. We don't have like a dedicated garage or anything for our business yet. But what we do is buy chemical from our local pool supply. And they have a big tank where they get deliveries every week for their own use, but also to sell. And a lot of the pressure washing and soft washing companies in our area use them. We can go there and fill up. We usually buy anywhere from 50 to 100 gallons at a time. So we do get a discount, a bit of a volume discount. So it's cheaper than, you know, just buying gallons of bleach from a pool supply store where you just, you know, paying the street price for it. We're paying more wholesale. So ideally we'll get to the point where we have our own tank. I know some of our colleagues in the industry in this area have their own, because they generally have multiple trucks, multiple teams out working during the day. And so it makes sense for them to have that kind of facility, and we're not quite there yet. We have the capacity to carry like 100 gallons of bleach in our truck. And from what I understand, the Department of Transportation, we don't need any kind of special license to carry that, as long as it's 100 or under. But I think they do count like all the other chemicals you have in your truck, so you have to be careful that if you have, you know, surfactant or grease remover and that kind of stuff in your truck, that if for whatever reason they wanted to pull you over and see how much chemical you're carrying, you're not going over that limit, because you can get into legal trouble, fines and stuff like that. Obviously we don't want that. But most of the trucks, most of the skids that we see in the market are, you know, the typical SH tank is about 100 gallons. You can see Dante's down below. He's watering while we're spraying, just in case there's any overspray. This house has gutters, which always makes our job a little bit easier, because not all this chemical is not just sheeting off the roof, it's going in the gutters, and we set up gutter bags to collect it, and that way we don't have just all that gallons and gallons of bleach going into their nice flower beds and lawn and stuff like that. And we do everything possible when we can to, mitigate that, but it's problematic. No matter how many precautions you take, it's still a lot of chemical to be running into their lawn. You can see some of the color differences there already. It's taking a little bit longer today because my chemical's not coming out with the kind of pressure that I normally would like. So, but it's working for now, so it'll just take a little bit longer. You can tell this section's a little bit darker because we have this tree right here overhanging it. Anytime you have shade like that, moisture is kept in there a lot better. So, hey Dante, watch out. That one, a little bit dirtier. When we're done with this, I'll show you guys how much chemical we used. I had just filled up before coming here, so we had about 100 gallons on the truck. Let's see how much we used. I'm guessing it's a decent sized roof. I might have to come back and touch up a couple of these spots. My guess is going to be 30 to 40 gallons, and that's about 12% SH. So it's, when we use that much, and we're using it at 4%, so you can kind of guesstimate how much water we're going through on a given job. That's why I'm glad we have the valve system, the metering system, so that we can, the mixer, so that we can do that on the truck and not have to try to guesstimate how much bleach we have to add to a water tank and do all that batch mixing. I know a lot of guys do that, but I'm very happy that we don't have to do that. You see a couple of these spots are darker right where the tree is. Probably gonna have to come back and touch up a little bit of this. I'm moving over this way. Actually, Dante, I'm gonna go that way. Yeah. I try to get these edges real good because they're finicky. And then I'll start back up at the top. And let that run down. You hear that sputtering? That's either air getting into the hose because that tape didn't work in, or it's the pump starting to go, or a combination thereof. So go to the edge here so that Dante's not going to have to swing his hose around. So some of that runoff, you see that color? Some of that is the organics running down. A lot of it is actually also the surfactant, which has like a yellowish green color to it. These grains are pretty porous, but try to give it a good soaking so that it has a chance to penetrate there. I mentioned it in previous videos, but we typically don't rinse our roofs. We want to let that chemical sit up there for as long as possible, give it every chance to work. I know some people feel like the SH will damage the granules, but I don't believe that to be true. I think that what damages the granules is the mildew and algae. And so some will run off after you do the job because as it dies, it's letting go of those granules. But I don't think the roof is damaged by the SH at all. So I think that is kind of a bit of a myth, but I could be wrong. Don't know. All right. Keep working away at this roof. Like I said, it's taking a little bit longer because this is like sputtering, but a bit hard to see with the sun glare right in my eyes. And you can see that color changing almost instantly where it's running down as it's killing that organic. If you guys didn't see our last roof job, it was a pretty hairy tile roof where I almost took a spill. I definitely prefer the asphalt shingles. It's much safer, much easier to do, and uses a lot less chemical. Typically, that chemical just sheets right off those tiles. so it becomes pretty intensive. I'm gonna come over and touch up that part once Dante's over on that side. The one nice thing about doing roofs this time of year is that it is not hot, so it's kind of chilly today. It takes a little bit longer for the chemical to react, but it's not instantly evaporating like when it's hotter here in Florida. And you know, if it's 90 degrees out, that means the roof is significantly hotter than that, and it just almost instantly vaporizes the SH. So we have to wear ventilation. We have to, you know, or wear a mask sometimes. We have to sometimes go over it a little bit more because it's just evaporating. So it might take a little longer for the bleach to react when it's cold out, but it definitely makes it a lot easier to do, a little easier on us. That's why we also try to do all these jobs in the morning when it's a little bit cooler. You can see Dante below there, he's hitting those bushes. So in case there's any overspray, it's diluting it before it can burn them. There's not as much runoff to dilute this time because we have the gutter bags, but the more we can protect those plants. It's been very dry here in Florida. We haven't been getting much rain, so they need extra protection. Extra watering. We don't want those roots absorbing the SH. Other than being dirty, this roof appears to be in pretty good shape. So you can see that runoff there. That's what we try to avoid, but especially in where the roofs join, it just flows off there. You can't really do much about it. It's obviously a waste of chemical, but it's one of the reasons why roofs cost more, because they do take a lot of chemical. You can see the difference in color there from where we did earlier to where we're doing now. You can see what I was talking about with the runoff. It just goes down and it helps to clean those shingles below it. It's not getting full coverage, but take advantage of that. Instead of starting at the bottom, try to take as much advantage of that runoff as possible. Do some of the work for us. We got some questions about how we calculate these jobs. So one of the things that we have to communicate to customers, because a lot of times they'll just say like, oh, my house is 2,000 square feet. And they expect us to base the estimate on, what their house is listed at square footage wise. But we have to measure the roof rather than just taking the square footage, because that square footage doesn't include the garage, doesn't necessarily include the lanai. It doesn't include the pitch. So if they have a steeply pitched roof, it's a lot more surface area. So we have to take all that into consideration when trying to figure out how much time and chemicals it's going to take to do our estimates. So we don't just use the square footage that you find on Zillow or something. We actually have to go in, and we typically use the satellite images to actually measure the roof when possible. Some of these neighborhoods around us near Tampa, the satellite images are lacking. Sometimes they're such new communities that they don't have good images, or in cases where there's a lot of tree cover, we'll not be able to get a good accurate picture of the roof to measure. So we'll have to come out and take a look at it, do a quote, or we'll just try to give it our best guess about how many garages and stuff they have, what their lanai area is, that kind of stuff, and do as close as possible. It's not obviously an exact science because each roof is different. Some are a little dirtier than others, some are a lot dirtier than others. So that all has to be factored in. Typically, if they're contacting us to do their roof, it's probably pretty dirty. They've usually gotten a notice from the HOA or their insurance company's giving them a hard time. Sometimes it's just because it looks bad. They want it to look nice. But the majority of people aren't spending the money to clean their roof. Usually for that, it's usually because the HOA has contacted them. Alright guys, I'm going around with some bleach neutralizer. These gutters are not draining well, so I don't want to have chemical continue to drain after we take our bags with us. So I'm doing this so that we can make sure they don't kill their yard. So eventually the bleach will evaporate anyway, but I just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence here. This stuff is pretty effective. You can see it starting to react already with the bleach. So all right, you can see the difference here. I'm running around and treated some of these little darker spots, so those will continue to fade. But looks significantly better than it did. All right. All right, guys, wrapping up on this roof job today. We just took off the gutter bags and we're finishing rinsing out the pumps. But it's a little difficult to tell because it's wet in some spots still, but you can see it's a lot cleaner than it was a couple shades later. So we threw some of that bleach neutralizer in the gutters so that any runoff that continued would get neutralized before it runs into the grass and stuff. Let's see how much bleach we used. This thing was full today, so I don't know if you can see the line. It was about 25 to 30 gallons, probably about 30 gallons of bleach today. So that's not terrible. It's a lot better than on tile roofs, but 30 gallons is pretty typical, 25 to 30 for most asphalt shingle roofs that are the standard size around here, you know, like 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So it is not inexpensive to buy that chemical and the surfactant, which is why roof jobs cost a little bit more, but you can see it looks pretty good up there. We just gotta make sure we grab all the bags and stuff and we'll get out of here. We'll talk to you guys later.